Hey, this is Hans from Request for Music, and I actually want to give you a preview this time. And that's a preview of my DRAWWAVE module, which will be out in maybe a week or maybe some longer. I'm not quite sure. It's in the beta test stage at the moment, and DRAWWAVE is a module with which you have sort of a oscilloscope kind of view, but you can actually draw your waves in there. So I'm going to take my output into my delay, and I'm also going to take it into my scope, and I've got some signal output here, and I've got a pitch input here, and I'm not going to play yet, but that means that I actually, when left clicking and dragging on within this screen, you can create a sound, and you see there's measuring. So a signal that I've drawn, and let's take the time base back a little so it tries to recreate that. It syncs at a different point, so you can see, but here this is the starting point of that wave. It's going up, it's going down, so let's put another part in here. Let's try to do it again and make it a bit different. Something like this, which it has a harder time syncing to, and I'll dial the audio wave of this up, and I'll dial it up here so you can hear that sound a bit better. So this is the shape as it is now, and actually you have a couple of preset, of course, so it means that if I dial this to none, which is the first, it has a drop down menu for a lot of preview waves that you can use as sort of a template to draw from. So I could start off with a sine wave like this, and you can tell. I'll dial it back a bit so I've got the sound a bit more in the background. You hear that it's pretty high. I can use my transpose and transpose it down maybe 2 octaves, and it'll show you. And the next one being a sawtooth. The next one being a triangle. The next one being a square wave. A stairs. A random wave, which obviously is pretty messy. A pulse. Half a sine. A spike, just a very narrow pulse. Even harmonics. A bent sawtooth. A folded sine wave. Sort of wave folding kind of thing. A clipped sine wave. Which, yeah, we come back to later. A windowed pulse. A parabole. A broken line. And the last one being a double sine. But the nicest thing, of course, is that you're able to draw within that shape. So I could use this as sort of a basis and then just draw parts of that shape in that I want different. So something like that. And so you can draw your own shapes. But then at the bottom I have the option of editing. So I've got an edit button here, I've got an undo button, and I'm going to put some extra modules in there to make it behave like a synthesizer. I don't want to hear the shape all of the time, so I'm going to put an ADSR in there. An ADSR, I'll pass it next to the scope there, and I'll take a VCA. VCA being the amplifier, of course. So that being said, if I use my gate out of my sources and I take the output of my gate into my VCA and switch that on, and I take the output of my draw wave in here and use my output of my VCA to go into my delay, this is going to decide next to the ADSR how the sound will be like. So so if I have everything connected up properly, I've got this, I've got my gate, the gate will be driving my envelope, and my sound out is going there, so I should be hearing sound if I have my volume set up. Take my sustain down, so I could now have a very short sound, of course, if I dial my decay back, and otherwise. And I have a delay and I have a reverb at the end of this, so yeah, that adds up to the overall sound, of course. So now I have this shape, but as I said, I have an edit button here, and I have a whole lot of buttons here down on the bottom side. You can see inv, which is actually invert. I see RCT, rectify, normalize. Let's see, what was that again? That was, and you will see actually if you go over it, that the help comes up. So this was the flatten. This is the mirror button. This is the noise that you can shape with. You can repeat parts. You can set a boost. You can attenuate, so you can lower values. You can limit, that's what LAM stands for. You have a fold value that you can fold your signals with. A smooth, a bend. Next to the bend, there's the blur function. I have the emphasis, and I have a jitter, and I have a quantize, and I have a stretch function. And you can do all of these functions to a part that you can set. So if I switch on my edit, you see that you have an edit range coming up. So I can take this part and just take it somewhere. I can actually float this around over the screen. So if I wanted to do something to this area, for instance, here, and for instance, I would put some jitter in there. With jitter, and you have very small, there's a couple of knobs in here on the bottom of the LED buttons that are in there. So I can dial my jitter up, for instance, and what that does is it creates some extra spikes in there, which then obviously gives some more spike to the signal, because there's extra frequencies in there. But of course, I could also do something like smooth the signal. So if I take this and take it over all of my signal, and I press the smooth button, and every time you press it, it takes that function, or it uses that function, or it on that signal. Maybe I wanted to have this part a bit softer, so I can attenuate it. So I could do something like this, or maybe then after I did this, I want to boost this part. So you see that if I click it a couple of times, I get different effects. I could also, for instance, normalize the full signal. So if I edit everything and press normalize, it's trying to get it as high as it can. Or if I wanted to rectify it, so this is on the top of the x-axis as well, I could do that. Maybe just slightly less reverb. So you can hear you can make different sort of sounds with all of those functions. So let's just get back to, and you've seen here that it's went into custom because as soon as I start drawing somewhere on that shape, and I've got this edit, and I got an undo normally to the last value that it's set before that, but that I need to be in my edit. If I go back to my sine wave and start editing on this, if I do an invert on this, obviously it's going to invert that. A rectify would do this, and as it is still in beta stage, there might be some stuff not working exactly as I want it. So let's get back to my sine wave again. So rectify is putting everything on top of the x-axis, making everything positive, so to speak. Normalize, yeah, that will not work in this case because the value is too high. So let's get back to this clipped sine, something like this, and put the normalizing up. You see that it's then giving it the full magnitude. Something like this. Then I had this flatten version. So flatten actually sort of yeah, it flattens, of course, but it flattens in a different way than you would normally see now. It flattens as an average. So let's get back to my sine wave and show you some differences there. Mirror, of course, mirrors the sound, and the inverse was the different way of inverting. So you've got mirroring and inverting, which are different. I've got noise, so that means that it's creating full lot of noise there, but that can be interesting to then afterwards taking one of the other functions out there and shape the signal in a different way. So for now I'm going back to my sine again, and I can also say that I wanted to repeat this part, and repeat, it doesn't have a setting yet, so it only repeats that part twice. So if I take this now, I could actually then repeat that part. So I can create very strange sounds there, and I could also take this and now invert that part, so I've got something like this. And every different shape will indeed change its sound. And I see a peak in there, and I could, for instance, go on that part specifically and then use my smooth to take that spike part out of there to get a more smooth sound. So that was the repeat version. Then of course I have a boost, and also there is a tiny knob behind there which you can use to change your boost level knob. I think it was set at 1.2, so that means that it can boost it up, and you can use the attenuator to boost to take it down slightly. And you have a limiter, so let's boost it up first and then limit it. You can see that it can cut off parts, and that also has a knob, so you can cut more off if you want. Then the fold is if it has some bends in there, so maybe I should use a double sine and take that down a bit and try to fold that. It's will not, yeah, okay, there we are. So now it's folding the signal in itself, and you can try stuff with that. Then, as said, there's the smooth. So the smooth is taking the spikes of this. So I can use that, and I can obviously dial that up to have more effect. So this is the highest effect, and I can repeat that a couple of times to get. So I can use that to shape that sound as well, and let's boost it a couple of times again. And the next one would be the bend, and the bend is, yeah, it's creating extra. It's looking at the top values of that, and you can see that you can create different sounds that way, which also alters or changes the sound. And next to bend, I have the blur, which is a different way of smoothing the sound, and also changes the overall sound. Then there's an emphasis that, and maybe I should do that with a different kind of sound again, which takes some peaks and changes that sound, or changes those extra frequencies in there, or it adds extra frequencies in there. The jitter, that was the thing that I can use to add extra spikes, extra randomness to the signal. So if I dial this all the way up, yeah, then I get very sort of almost like noise in the sound. And let's go back to my original double sign again, and dial it a bit back. To my attenuate, and then here I have a quantize version, quantize value with which you can quantize the actual sound, and I seem to have forgotten to set that value higher, so you can get better quantization. And it also adds to the sound because it gets sort of a square wave kind of value or possibility in there. And last but not least is the stretch version, stretch between 0 and 2, I think. So that means that if I set it lower and I stretch it, it's going to take that down 2 apart. So you get a different waveform as well. So yeah, that's sort of the state of the DRAWWAVE as it is now. It has a sync input in there if you need to sync it to another wave. So that's the DRAWWAVE. As said, it will hopefully be out within a week or 2 weeks or something like that. So watch the stores. See you back in the next video. Cheers. Bye bye.